Bluffs Savings Bank, you still get personalized customer service.
We have identity-safe checking with LifeLock, identity theft protection.
You get personal mortgage lending to fit your needs now and in the future.
You get business banking with the latest technology because saving you time saves you money.
At Council Bluffs Savings Bank, you get people who answer when you call and local employees who are actively involved in our community. Council Bluffs Savings Bank, hometown banking the way it used to be.
Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Show that all council is present except for Melissa Head, and would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Or opposed, I'm sorry. I have a proclamation tonight designating April 12th through the 18th as National Library Week. City of Council Bluffs, Iowa Office of the Mayor proclamation. Whereas libraries create potential and possibilities within their communities, campuses, and schools. And whereas libraries level the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. And whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve in how people provide for the needs of every member of their communities. And whereas libraries and librarians open up a world of possibilities through innovative STEM programming, maker space, job-seeking resources, and the power of reading. And whereas librarians are trained, tech-savvy professionals providing technology training and access to download content like e-books, and whereas libraries support democracy and affect social change through their commitment to provide equitable access to information for all library users regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week, therefore I, Matthew Walsh, Mayor of the City of Council Bluffs, Iowa, does hereby proclaim April 12 through 18, 2015 as National Library Week in the City of Council Bluffs, Iowa, and encourage residents to visit the library during the week to take advantage of the wonderful library resources available at our library with the seal of the City of Council Bluffs. All right, for public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is Ordinance 6229, which amends the zoning map as adopted by reference in Section 15.02.040 by rezoning property generally described as lying between I-480 and Avenue B, west of the existing North 40th Street, commonly referred to as River's Edge subdivision, by rezoning proposed Block 1 from R4 high-density multifamily residential district to R4 high-density multifamily residential with a PR, which stands for Planned Residential Overlay and Zoning. Proposed blocks 2 and 6 from R4 high-density multifamily residential and A2 parks, estates, and agricultural district to R4 high-density multifamily residential with a planned residential overlay as defined in chapters 15.11 and 15.28, and by the rezoning the proposed block from R4 multifamily residential district, proposed block 7 from R4 multifamily residential district to C4 commercial district as defined in chapter .17, and by rezoning proposed outlots A and B from R4 high-density multifamily residential to A2 Parks, Estates, and Agricultural District as defined in Chapter 15.05. Is proof of publication on file?
Yes, it is.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Is there anyone here who would wish to speak in regards to this matter? Al, yeah, please, and can you give your name for the record?
My name is Al Ruby, and I live at 513 North 27th Street. This has to do with the new buildings going up there at Tom Hannafin Park, correct?
On the dry side of the levee.
Okay.
Right.
What's that going to do with our tax levy on the other side? What's it going to cost me for this to go up? And I'm speaking for several residents in my neighborhood. A lot of these guys are elderly people. They're in their 80s. And we had a talk with a lot of them last week and the week before, and they're just concerned. What's our taxes going to go up? We're already being taxed like it is, like no means, but I know our taxes are going to go up because of this.
I can't say your taxes won't go up in the future, but I don't think it will be in relation to this. The intent, as I've explained in the past, Al, costs to run a city continuously go up. And so there are three things that elected bodies can do to address that. One is to increase people's property taxes, which you're worried about. The second is to cut expenses and provide less services, which has a detrimental effect to some residents because some people don't use the service that gets cut, but some people do, and so they find that not acceptable. And the third option is to broaden out the property tax base of the city, and so more people are contributed into the cost of running the city. And we've been fortunate for 10 years because of growing property tax base, and it's a long explanation, which could be because of increased valuation of a specific property, and could be because of new property added to the tax roll, and is. Because of that growth in the property tax base, it's allowed us to keep the levy flat for at least 10 years. In some cases it rolled back, and so what this council has chosen to do is try to increase valuation rather than raise property taxes. Now again, there are three different major taxing entities: the school district, the county, and the city. And so I'm not naive to or misleading enough to say your taxes haven't gone up, but this specific project should not affect your taxes.
Okay, it's just when this project goes up, and the company or the owner, whoever it may be, that is putting this up, are they going to walk away tax exempt for so many years? Because nobody's ever seen this in a paper whether they are or they aren't.
I don't know that tax exempt is accurate, but they will, I am sure, come forward and ask for TIF, which is an economic development tool that Iowa uses to incent development. So today, that property where they're located is owned by the city and pays no taxes. And so quite likely the developers will come forward and say, we'd be willing to build there if you give us some tax relief for a set time frame to help us get established, to help us pay our debt associated with the construction. What we've historically done is not give 100% of that money back, so walk away with no taxes really isn't totally accurate, but could quite possibly rebate 65% in some projects. We've done as high as 80% for a period of time. Now that doesn't raise other people's taxes because they don't contribute to that TIF. It's only the taxes that the specific project pays itself. And so there's none of your tax dollars going to the developer. It's the tax dollars the developer pays tomorrow on tax dollars that weren't there today. So that's the incremental increase, which is why they call it TIF, tax increment financing. It helps the project get off the ground. And then once that time frame passes where they're established, where they've been able to get their debt under control, they pay 100% taxes. And a good example of that is the Walmart, Home Depot, Menards, all those were in a TIF district. Today they pay 100% of their taxes. Then that helps spread out the tax expenditures that wouldn't be there if nobody ever developed it.
Because a few years back, and this was brought up by some of the people who were, 80 to 85 years old, said, hey, this and this went up, and they said that the taxes weren't gonna cost us anything, and then when the people started building, they got the taxes, they were a tax incentive where they didn't have to pay anything for so many years, and then it went back onto these people, and such as the casinos. When the casinos come in, everybody said, hey, you know what, taxes are not gonna raise up, they're not gonna do this, they're not gonna do that. And 3 years after the casino was up and running, everybody's taxes went from here to here, and it's not stopped. So that's the biggest concern, even for me. And I've got 7 years left to work. I want to make sure I can still afford my home on what I got coming in on my retirement. So, and I'm not the only one that's thinking that way.
No, and I think this body's cognizant of that. I think they're doing what they can to keep it affordable. As I told people during the budget, the city's primary expenditure is wages, and wages typically go up. Their secondary expenditure is their facilities maintenance and operations, which includes utilities, just like you pay, and
Right.
those have gone up. And so the increased costs have to be paid for, and again, the way to do that is to raise each individual's taxes or spread it out, try to bring new property into the fold. On the casinos, frankly, I was very active in that time. I was on the CBBA. We were one of the ones that tried to bring the casinos in. For years I've been hearing that the government said when we get the casinos, taxes won't go up. In actuality, it was the people representing Paradise Casinos that made that statement, that you make enough money, you won't have to raise taxes. And secondly, that the casinos pay a lot of taxes, but most of that goes to the state of Iowa, so it's not a huge influx to the city.
Yeah, lucky us.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, I just want to make sure that this doesn't come. I know that you asked if you had anybody that read and that disagreed with that, and a lot of people don't get out. A lot of people can't get out. And and maybe this is just my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think this thing everybody needs to have a look. I'm all for this, and don't get me wrong. Whatever's going to beautify the city of Council Bluffs and bring in more revenue, I agree with 100%. I'm just saying that maybe the council maybe want to take another look and say, hey, what does the public actually think about this? Put it in the paper. Say, what does the public say about it? Let's have a hearing. Let's get people in here, or put it in the paper. Say, what do you think about this? In the paper, write in, and we'll take a look at what you're doing and what's going on. But I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people in my neighborhood, over 40 people, that are very worried about what's going to happen when this goes up. Because, and I always believe this, and I always will. The rich man steps into Council Bluffs, makes him a lot of money, and he doesn't care about the small boy because he's already got his established, and he's still making money. It's the small guy that's going to have to pay the taxes, and I don't want to see that happen.
Everybody pays taxes based on their valuation, so it has been in the paper, Al. It's prominently displayed on the front page of the living section of the World Herald, in the front page of the Nonpareil, in when you say have a public, tonight's the public hearing. So.
Yeah, well, a lot of people can't make it because of what they're in, either the wheelchair or they can't. My mother-in-law lives with me. She's got Alzheimer's, and she's still coherent a lot about this, and she reads this stuff, and the first thing comes out of her mouth is, oh boy, what's this going to do to my taxes at my house, even though she don't live it there. Yeah. But they still think there's going to be an issue with it. So I just want to bring it to the attention is all.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
And to your point about TIFs, the council already has taken preliminary action to set the stage for those TIF agreements. So it appears as though those TIF incentives are already contemplated.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else like to address the issue with the council? Anyone from the council?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay?
And again, oftentimes people ask because they can't tell. That vote was 3-1. This is time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of Resolution 15-93 approving the plan, specifications, cost estimate, and form of contract for the East Manawa Sewer Rehab Phase 4 project. Is proof of publication on file?
Yes, it is.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak in regards to the East Manawa Sewer Rehab Phase 4 project? Seeing none, anyone from the council? Or, I'm sorry, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Anyone, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is a time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of Resolution 15-99, authorizing the mayor and other city officials to execute the financing agreement with the Iowa Finance Authority, the second amended and restated agreement for the private redevelopment of Legacy CB LLC, and all related documents necessary to complete this transaction. It is proof of publication on file.
Yes.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there anyone here who would wish to speak in regards to this issue? Is there a motion?
Motion to.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 15-94, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Olson Associates, Inc. for engineering services in connection with the ICAP project, East Broadway realignment at Gainesville Boulevard, US 6.
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there a discussion?
Just that this project is going to assist in an area where we've got some new development and, or not new, I'm sorry, this is where we're doing the realignment, and then we've had some questions about how that would look. We've had a lot of people asking us what that would look like, and the engineering hasn't been done for it yet. Greg tried to explain to Nate and I earlier at study session what this might look like, but he didn't want to actually put anything out there because it hasn't been engineered yet, so we don't know exactly what it'll look like.
But it will allow some right turns on reds, and now you have to wait forever. It feels like it anyway for a green arrow, and it reduces it down to one lane because East Broadway is now only one lane wide because we've added that center turn lane. So it makes the traffic flow a lot better and should be faster, reduce that bottleneck that people have complained about for years. And so we were able to get a federal grant for most of it. So the vast majority will come from the federal funds you pay rather than the city.
I was just going to add that the federal funds cover 80% and the city kicks in 20%.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 15-95, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with HGM Associates for engineering services in connection with the Gifford Road storm outfall.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 15-95, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a contract with Precision Roofing for the 2014 city hail damage roof replacement project, including alternative 1.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Oh, just a comment that I asked this afternoon during the work session if insurance does cover the entire cost of the repair, and it does.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 15-97, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a contract with Boone Brothers for the Bass Pro Shop flat roof replacement project, including alternative 1.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Again, this one is fully covered by insurance, as some folks have asked about it, not tax money.
Other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 15-98, authorizing the city clerk to certify the solid waste nuisance assessments to the Potawatomi County Treasurer to be collected in the same as property tax.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
It is good to note that the amount of loss that the city is experiencing due to non-payment of these liens is decreasing because we've gone to a quarterly, what am I trying to say? Quarterly lien basis.
Yeah. And there are fewer of them from all appearances, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 15-100, rejecting all bids received on March 17, 2015 for the Mid-City Trail Phase 2 project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
The bids came in awfully high, and so we're going to look to try to find them at a better price so that folks will know. And look to see whether the project should stay the same or perhaps change, but to be cost effective with the money, the bids were just too high.
Almost 100% over engineers' estimates.
Yeah.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Application for
Sorry.
permits and cancellation 7A and B.
Motion to approve 7A and B inclusive.
Second.
Discussion.
I do want to commend, the last meeting, some concerns, including by me, were raised about one of the establishments with a few violations in the year. Talking with the police chief, a good number of them were caused outside of and unrelated to the establishment. And the ones that were within, the owner, Mr. Ronk, came and spoke at the study session, which was really impressive to see him come and step up and talked about how he'd move forward and he'd make his business even better. And it is a good business. And so I commend him for that. He's met my concerns, and I appreciate him doing that, so I'll support the renewal of his liquor license.
Other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Citizens request to be heard, Nora Fuller.
Ms. Fuller, can you give us your address for the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My name is Nora Fuller, and I reside at 303 North 27th Street. And I'm here tonight just to submit a request that since I met with the project manager on the North 27th Street rehab that will be taking place, they informed me that the fence that I currently have around what I thought was my property indeed is not, and that fence would have to be removed and I would not be allowed to put it back up because then it would be on the public right-of-way. And what I would like to request is just that I be allowed at least those few feet outside my door to the public walkway, the new one that's going to be laid, and so that I can keep my yard enclosed. I have pets that I cannot leash, they're cats. I don't know if you ever tried to leash a cat, but it doesn't work.
No.
And I also care for a toddler, and she's not old enough and wise enough to say, don't cross that street or don't get out on that street. So I want to keep her safe. So that's why I'm here tonight, to request that exception. And I have, if you need to see,
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
She'll grab them for you if you want.
Here, just give.
you can clearly see my residence, 303 North 27th Street. I'm on the corner of 27th and Avenue C. And the trees that are in front of the property have already been removed. That is where the sidewalk will lie. And as you can see by looking at this, that if I were to put my fence along or next to what's considered city property, it would be directly outside my door. So I would like to ask for an exception and a few extra feet and be allowed to put the fence along what will be the new sidewalk.
Mayor, is that something then that goes before the variance board, or?
No, this is actually a property issue. What we sometimes have done is grant a license to occupy public right of way, but I've not discussed that issue with Public Works on this call.
I know that we've done that in commercial areas. I did speak with the city engineer on this, and he did it because I couldn't understand why the fence couldn't go back up. But what he explained is it had to go back up even with the house.
Right.
And he kind of drew just a rough sketch of how, for the sidewalks to line up, there's going to have to be a jog in there, which is going to make it even more difficult for you to, put that fence back up there. He said that they've actually deal with this in the West End almost on a daily basis, with the fences and the properties being intruding into the city right away. I don't know what accommodation can be made. He said this happens literally on a daily basis in the West End.
If you look at my neighbor directly across Avenue C from me, you will see that his fence is overlapping the city property.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is somewhere else that I need to go to get the authorization to have the fence put back up again and have it run along the sidewalk, it wouldn't be necessarily on public right of way. I mean, it might infringe by a feet or two, but it'll allow me to enclose my yard and keep it safe like I'm wanting to.
I think the concern, I spoke with the Public Works Director and one of the engineers on this as well, and I think the concern is, this is something that they do see over and over and over, that homeowners, you mentioned you didn't even know, weren't aware that it wasn't your property, but
Correct.
Once these situations come to light, in a residential situation, the fence or whatever it is that had to be removed doesn't go back. They don't allow it to go back on city property, and the concern is, if you allow it once, then that opens the door, and they've consistently said no, just because it's on city right of way. So I would think that somebody's going to be getting in contact with you again on this issue, but I know that there's some hesitation to make an exception. But I spoke with Greg Reeder and one of the engineers, so you might follow up with Mr. Reeder.
Okay, well, most definitely will do that, but I'm also in hopes that someone within the city can direct me to another source, if there is, so that I could further pursue getting this fence put back up to at least the sidewalk, to where, like I said, I can enclose my yard and keep it safe. If I am not allowed to put the fence back up, it's not safe.
This does raise an
Card when we're done.
this does raise an issue that a lot of times folks ask about, and so briefly, I just want to say that there's a certain strip of property in front of people's homes, generally along the street, and depending on where you are in town, so depending on what decade or century you were built in, it makes a big difference sometimes. Mm-hmm. There's a certain amount of space that you are required to maintain, and businesses have to do it too in front of theirs. It's not just homeowners, but it's part of the public way, which is just an old-fashioned legalese way of saying the street. So if the street ever had to be expanded or things of that nature, that way there's a place so that people can, otherwise nobody could ever get to their houses if we,
right.
Yeah. But I appreciate in certain circumstances, and the other thing people say is, the 10-year rule about property lines, that doesn't work against government. Just because if you did that, you could lose streets. So in Iowa, that doesn't work against government. So if it'd been there a century and it's not right, and it's seen to be, then it can be. But in certain circumstances, does it work? Significant difficulties, yes. And sometimes we do make exceptions. A lot of it just depends on the ability to get the sidewalk right, so that people, particularly folks that with walking, who have some disabilities, as well as sight lines. We're really particularly concerned when people turn, that they're able to see. That's why a lot of times you see those fences at a 45 at corners now, so that you can see around them, and hedges get cut back and such. There might be. I'm not familiar in this particular case if there could be, and I don't want to either promise you something that can't deliver on. But certainly they can take a look at it, and I'd strongly encourage you to talk to the head of Public Works, like Councilmember Brannigan said, and see if something can be done. I just don't know in this case. We tend to defer a lot to the engineers and the experts in that case for safety, and that might be what this is.
Okay,
Please.
well, I appreciate your time.
You have his number.
Do I have the telephone?
Here, I've got a,
328-4634.
I've got a card,
I'll
I've
give
got
it to
my
you.
card for you.
Thank you.
I'll give you my card, you can follow up with me.
And please, I'd appreciate it if you'd, get back in touch with us. Emails are terrific too, and keep us informed of what Public Works folks tell you. I would be very interested in what they say. What would they anticipate the uses would be in that space. So, if there's a need for that right away for a utilities reason, they ought to be able to identify that pretty quickly.
That's what it is.
Is
It's
it?
the utilities, they're putting the sewer in there.
Yeah, and the way it looks is that sidewalk, this is an unusual situation where the way it is right now, you don't normally see sidewalk at the back of curb, but in front of your house it is. There's no parking space or green space, so the sidewalk's going to be put where it's supposed to be, which when I look at this is probably going to put it about the foot of your steps.
Yeah.
So it doesn't,
Virtually.
yeah, it doesn't leave a lot there, does it?
No.
We'll come down and take a look at it, but I'll give you a card afterwards so that you can follow up with me, just in case I don't follow up with you, but I think I have your phone number.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I ask you on the south? I assume that's the south, the bottom of the picture.
Yeah, the Avenue C side?
Yes, directions aren't my strong suit, I'm sorry. Is that part of a fenced in, I just can't see it if you have room on that
Yes,
side.
it's actually fenced right down to the sidewalk. It's chain link fenced, just to let you know that I'm wanting to put back up, so there would be clear view for going around the corner.
Oh, I see, thank you. Okay, thank you, I just want to make certain I understood it, and I'll be glad, if you don't mind, I'll just drive by and take just a gander as I
That
drive
would
by.
be appreciated.
Yes.
It's just so, because I have a hard time seeing it without, so that way when you do, if you do, and certainly you're welcome to email us back, I'll have a better understanding of what.
That's a good
It
point.
runs
If
all
you
the way
see-
around the sidewalk? Is that?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see, thank you, I appreciate that, I didn't.
If you see cars pulling up in front of your house, stopping and looking, it's probably one of us, so don't be alarmed.
Don't panic.
Please don't call the police.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get your card. Anyone from the audience care to? Anyone from the council? Oh, Al? All right. Can you give us your
Thanks
address
for hearing me
Al?
again. I too live at 513 North 27th Street. And this is one of the main reasons why I was up here tonight. This is gonna be a big issue. You talk about the city setback to where we've gotta take care of so much property, the sidewalk and 2 foot on the other side of the sidewalk next to the street. Well, in this case, there's 7 foot that we've taken care of that belong to the city. The sidewalk's next to the curb, but you guys see that. So therefore, we've taken care of the city's property, and I got 1 dime out of it. Now you guys want to take that sidewalk and you want to shove it clear to our front door and give us no front yard whatsoever. Over the last 15 years that I've lived there, they redid that street, I believe in, I want to say in 96, 97. And I could be wrong, Matt, I'm not for sure, but I think it's 96, 97. Drivers last year tore the sewer up on my block and had to fix it because it caved in on a homeowner's property. That homeowner,
And just so that they're following what you're saying, is the plumbing company, not drivers. but-
Drivers Plumbing, had to replace it, I'm sorry. Yeah, Drivers Plumbing had to replace it. Okay, I
I
apologize.
was like,
Drivers
that's a really
Plumbing.
bad driver that did that.
Yeah, but Drivers Plumbing, I apologize, you're right. Drivers Plumbing had to come in and replace it on the 2700 block. On the 2600 block, Roy Brown had to pay to have that section of the 2600 block, which she lives in, had to have it, or excuse me, you live on the 2500. 27, but I mean on the block coming up, huh? Yeah, the 300 block. On the 400 block, Roy Brown had to pay to have that fixed. $10,000. The lady across the street had to pay to have it fixed. $10,000. Now you guys are gonna come in and you're gonna widen the street. make it to where you can get a 4-lane highway on that thing is what it's gonna be. It's gonna be wide. But I don't quite understand why it's coming so far up to our doorsteps. And then not only that, but from the 300 block all the way up to Avenue G, which I'm talking about Avenue B all the way up to Avenue G, when these guys tear this up, the way they told us with a letter that it's gonna be a year before they get all this stuff done. You got 3 things to worry about. Number one, you have a lot of elderly people in that neighborhood. My mother-in-law is one of them, and she has to have an ambulance access to the front door. I don't know how you guys are gonna do it, but it's gotta be done. She's on oxygen, and she's not in real good shape. Lady Cantor Corny from me is the same way. She's got a bad heart, she's on oxygen, and she's gotta have access to where a rescue squad can get to her. So these are the things, Matt, you might wanna come down and take a look, because it's really important that we work together on this to figure out what's going on. Because I mean, they're cutting everybody's doorstep, and if you go on the other side of the street, on the west side of the street, you probably got 15 feet that they can take, instead of taking so much on the one side.
My understanding, Al, and again, I'll be down to look, to get firsthand look, but they're not widening the street, they're putting a sewer along that section, and then they're gonna redo the street, but they're not gonna make it so that you step off your stoop, hopefully, into traffic.
We were told, and just like she said, we were told that my sidewalk is, when I step down on my step, I have a tree right here, my sidewalk's gonna be here, and it's 12 feet from it's 12 feet from my deck. That sidewalk's moving in.
Yeah. And that's where the easement is. So, you know, I look at it and I think the same thing. I'm like, wow, there's so much room, but we don't own what's on the other side of the street. So then you'd have to go through buying easement on the other side of the street, because
But the city does own what's on the other side of the street.
well, we own.
You own, if you
We
take a look
own
at
it
it,
to
you
the
think
end
you own
of
a
the
lot.
easement, but it's.
It's not an easement. The city owns a lot on the other side of that street.
But we don't intend to keep it. We own quite a few of these.
No, you mean a lot of property.
Yeah, the city owns.
I've got the aerial here, so I can see where the easements are on both sides.
Did you see on 20? You see on
It's
North
just
20?
that
You see
those homes
on
weren't
the 500
built.
block?
I'm looking at the 300 block.
I'm sorry. I wish I would have brought that.
Yeah,
The
we
five-
just got the corner.
Yeah, the 500 block. I mean, my cousin lives across the street. He's got 15 feet that doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the city.
Sure.
And they're not taking that out. They're coming this way, closer to the other side.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be splintered up.
Well,
So-
one of the things that's really difficult, you actually, the city has a right of way over it, but you actually still, in a legal sense, own it. So you're required to maintain it. The city has a right to use it at any time. That's how we get streets in there at all. Otherwise, if everybody kept private property rights, you'd never be able to get to your house because there'd be no way to get there. So one of the things we have to worry about in the future is if they had made certain there was enough space for road width 100 years ago, it'd be a whole heck of a lot easier to go up South First and Madison. But in the past, they used to just build everything right on the edge. Didn't leave enough for, I mean, it worked well for horses, and that's, you know, what it was designed for. But as you move into the future, who knows what people will be driving in 100 years.
Well, that's kind of an emergency route to begin with, because the fire department's right down the street.
Indeed, on
and
27th.
They use it all the time.
Yep. So that's why we need to have the space for the future in general. I don't know the
Yeah,
specific.
but you're talking space in the future, space in the general. I'm telling you right now that you got enough to put 4 cars across there right now.
But I'm saying if we give that up, we would never get it back without
Without extending the street on both sides, you have enough to put 4 cars across that street without taking any more of the property. But when you widen that street, that's exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're widening it. You're going to be able to put 6 cars across that.
I forget off the top of my head the width that fire trucks need to be able to get in, but it's fairly substantial. Off the top of my head, I want to say 30 feet.
No, it's not. I'll tell you right now, that street right now, you can get 4 cars parked across there right now and still have room to walk around it.
We'll come down and take a look.
We'll come down and
It's important that you guys do.
Yeah, what they're talking about doing though is not, and I hate to say this because I don't know if they're gonna widen the street, but it wouldn't be the width of what this lady's concerned about. It's for, in front of her house, it's to install a sewer.
Right, but they're also cutting back, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're taking all the way up to the doors. When I step out of my door, I'm gonna have 2 foot off my deck.
To the public sidewalk.
The public sidewalk is 12 feet away from my home. From the
But that's where they're
code, I
planning
gotta
to
be
put it back.
25 feet from the center of the street to my deck is where my deck has to start.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you take that 25 feet, you cut that in half, that's 12 feet. Now you're right there at my deck. And you're gonna put a sidewalk there. That means everybody that's got a fence all has to come down.
Part of the difficulty, and trust me, I can relate because my house is 125 years old, so my front yard, if the street ever widens in front of it, is nothing too. So I understand where you're coming from. It was that way when I bought it, and it was that way on the map lines. So I'm stuck with what I bought, and I don't mean to be harsh, but sometimes we can make exceptions. But those are on the public records when you buy it. And so that's one of the things that buyer beware when you buy a piece of property.
I don't agree with that, because when I had my tree trimmed, because the city was trying to get all the power lines, all the trees away from the power lines, my wife called the city and said, hey, we need to have you come trim the tree, because we knew that part was on the city. They told us that's your responsibility. No, that's your tree. You come cut it.
Typically, Mid-America Energy does do that. What's your address, Al?
513 North 27th Street. It's just, the things that I'm bringing up, these are the little things that the whole neighborhood is dealing with now. They're worried about rescue squads getting down there. They're worried about how much property they're gonna lose, knowing that a lot of this is the cities, and they understand that. But a lot of people, when you said buyer beware, I disagree with you 100%. Because when a real estate agent sells you that property, he needs to explain to you where that property line is and where it's staked at. That never happened.
That's not. That's
No, I'm
not
just saying-
true though. That a real estate, that's what you hire a survey for, and that's the one thing I've been so surprised about.
understand that.
Iowa doesn't require that. Another state that I did work real estate in required a plat to be done on every property that's sold, and then you would know about that. But we don't have that requirement in Iowa, and an agent is under no. In fact, they would more than likely never venture to tell you where the property line is because it's outside of their scope of work, and they'd be held liable for telling you that, and they're not surveyors. But the problem is this doesn't happen everywhere that people have built into the city's property, and the road width has to be a certain width. There are guidelines that have to be done, and if there's something that the mayor can do or Public Works can do to lessen the impact, I'm all in favor of that.
Sure.
And I haven't been provided yet with the staging of the project. So where, yes, it may take a year to do it, it'll be staged. So generally, we don't see an entire 8 or 10 block strip tore up for a year. We see staging done. So we'd need to see where those detours would be to give access to those properties.
There will be inconvenience.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have I understand the inconvenience. My
But you get a
other
new street at the
concerns
end.
that I have is, number one, we're gonna have to park our cars where they can't be seen. And the vandalism and the breaking of the windows and breaking into vehicles and stuff is tremendously terrible down there. I have cameras around my house, in my garage. So how much more security is gonna be down there? Because everybody that's on these blocks are gonna have to park their vehicles where they can't be seen.
Believe me, I know. I live up on North Second, and think about that. I'm right at the crest of the hill. When they replaced our road, it was a long, steep walk in, and that's just, there's no way to do a new road without that inconvenience. And I had to park blocks away for months on end.
But
it's awful, and I know it.
I understand that, but I'm not gonna park blocks away because that's my property, and I should have the right to park on my property, get in and out of my driveway, and I think I should be to where I've gotta get my mother-in-law in and out of the car. How are we gonna do that?
Well, I mean, honestly, there'd be no way to replace your road because they got to dig it up, put new sewers in. So there's no way to replace your road without that happening. What we can hope is that it can be staged where you can come in from the side streets. There's not, I can just tell you, there's no way that it's going to be that you're going to be able to pull up in front of your house during the major construction. It's
No, I'm not talking about the major, I'm talking about that I wanna make sure that when my mother-in-law has to go to the doctors, because she doesn't walk, and you're not gonna get a wheelchair over that ground that's tore up. There's no way.
Sir,
The rescue squad's gotta get in there. They gotta take her at least a half a block to get her out.
Yes.
Here's one of the things you might consider, and I don't believe your area has an active neighborhood group, and if you want help, that and there are plenty of other people who'd be willing to help you, but I'm happy to do it. And there are ways where the neighborhood can work together, and working together with the city as a group.
Most of these people, 75% of these people that are in a neighborhood, they're elderly people, so they're not going to get out and be able to do anything that you're thinking about doing.
Well,
most neighborhood leaders are actually, I hope I don't offend them, they tend not to be the youngest folks, which is a shame. We don't have very many young people involved.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well, and I understand where you're coming from, but like I said, we've got so many problems not to let this linger out.
No.
I'm
I'm trying to think of a solution to try to help you.
We've got elderly people. My concern is to get my mother-in-law out.
Indeed.
And is my vehicles that I got to pay for. And you got people on the east and the west side on Avenue F, then you got them on Avenue E, and they got to park their cars. So now you get all these people that are parking their cars up, and all of a sudden, well, guess what? You get too close to a driveway, and you get towed away.
Yeah,
because you got to be 3 foot. So I'm just saying, before they start cutting up, they need to make sure that everybody's going to be able to get in and out without any hassles and any tickets.
One of the things, and truly, the groups can come to you, and if everyone works together and talks and has a few meetings with the city, lots of well, not lots, but more than a few neighborhoods have done that, and the city staff are phenomenal. They are willing to come out and talk, on your schedule. So a lot of times it's in the evenings. We know that's what works for most folks. Some neighborhoods, though, especially if it's a lot of older folks, maybe it's the afternoon that works better.
Yeah, and everybody
but that's a way to have that discussion. So rather than so that the concerns can be met, and sometimes the answer is no, but it's that idea of trying to work together and having that ongoing conversation, especially as the project goes on. That's your ticket to getting the smoothest route possible. And so, the mayor's been really supportive of those neighborhood type efforts, and I know we have as well. And so that's just a solution. You don't have to do that.
No. I mean,
that's just an idea.
Everybody's willing to work together.
Yeah.
It's not what you can do for me, what I can do for you.
Yeah.
It's what we can do to solve the issue.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about. And I've talked to Matt with us many a times, But that's my concern. It's her concern. Sure. Of what's going on, and a lot of people in our neighborhood can't get out.
I would say, communication is going to be very important. Mrs. Fuller is going to be contacting the Public Works Director. I would recommend that you do the same. I don't remember exactly the neighborhood, but several years ago there was another neighborhood going through the same, construction situation. They had to park. Safety was a concern. And I remember going to meetings where the residents were speaking about that in particular, and somehow they got some extra lighting during that project. And so I think it's important that you make those, and that would never have happened if the residents didn't make their concerns known, and they were listened to, and there still was the inconvenience that they but at least they had some extra lighting that was provided for their safety. And I highly recommend that you speak with Mr. Reeder.
I'd like to see the city council, some of you guys come down and just take a look and walk through what's going on. That way you guys are aware. That way if somebody else comes in and says, hey, you know what, we've seen it, we've been there.
One of the things you might want to too is you're actually really, really close to the only organized neighborhood association right now in the West End. It's the northern boundary is just north of you on H, and their western boundary, I believe, is 28th, and they go all the way to 21st H, north to Nash Boulevard, Roberts Park neighborhood, and they're pretty active, and that would be another resource. They worked with the city on the Nash Boulevard, the old Holiday Inn issue, and that was a fantastic example of them working together, and they've got something in there. It's great new homes in that area and so forth. If you want to contact any of us, please do, and we'll continue the conversation, because we do want to hear your concerns and meet them best we can, but we're not going to make you promises, though, because we don't want to say something that we can't keep.
Don't make a promise, you can't keep it.
Yep.
But I think we're all, fairly interested and concerned about the situation down there. I actually intended to drive down there this afternoon before a meeting here at City Hall, and I should have stopped answering my phone. So I do intend to run by tomorrow.
Okay, I appreciate it very much. And before I leave, this is on a totally different subject. I'm with the Kingsville Riders Honor Guard, and one of the other reasons why I was here is because, I hope and pray that this year, the we have, that everybody gets together and works together and make this one solid parade. That everybody is willing to listen to everybody and work out the differences and stuff, if there is any, and not what you can do for me, what I can do for you guys, once again, what we can do to make this thing work.
I strongly encourage you to also contact that committee because there was a lot of misconceptions last year about how much involvement the city has, and I just, the city really and truly doesn't. We do issue the permit if they turn everything in, but Karen Purdue is the chair, and if you need any contact information, let us know. We'll make sure that happens. But
yeah, I brought an application up for the writers, and they didn't know who to give it to. I went to your office. So then they wrote it down who to give it to, so we're gonna take care of that. I'm just saying, let's work together as a community. That's what the riders want. It's not about who's doing this or who's doing that. It's what we can do together as a community and shine as a community.
Absolutely, and
Right.
I do appreciate you guys being in the parade.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone from the council?
Just a question about that 27th Street project. Are the current sewers in that right of way, or are they underneath the street?
I believe that the green is the arrow. The sewers are gonna go in the same spot they are now, they're just gonna be replaced with new sewer. Street's not gonna get widened.
No, I didn't think so either.
Okay.
We talked to the engineers already.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna put the sidewalks where they're supposed to be. They don't want to on back a curb. It doesn't give you any gap between the pedestrians and the street.
Sidewalks are moving, because now when I clean my sidewalk, the city hall won't.
And that's been one of the things a lot of folks have really wanted sidewalks. There's some parts of town. You and I happen to live also in a part of town when sidewalks were mandatory, and they are again. And for a few decades there, 60s and 70s particularly, they weren't. And then there are other areas, so they don't have them at all. And there's areas like yours and some part mine, and probably all of them that have sidewalks in need of repair. And so we're trying to fix all those the best we can under a 10-year plan. And the city fixing its own too, not just asking private landowners, but, there's some folks who've raised the question, well, the city ones look bad, and some of them do. And so, we're hold ourselves to the same standard. Always remembering you're paying for it, of course. But we'll try our best to get all those sidewalks in, because they're fantastic.
Well, I asked the question just from the standpoint that I wanted to make sure I understood what the planned uses for the right-of-way were. If they were going to be doing construction underneath the right-of-way, then that's a factor that has to be taken.
They are. They're pulling up the old sewer and replacing it, and then moving the sidewalk.
The sewer's underneath the street,
One
right?
or two blocks
I
at a
don't believe
time.
it is.
Yeah, and it's really is a very,
That's what you're saying, that's what.
No, she
Very
said
uncomfortable till
they're
it's
digging it
over,
up,
but
putting it
it's
right
hard
back
to-
where it is now. Isn't that right? The sewer is going back where it is now.
Yes, it is.
yeah.
Which is on the right-of-way or in the street?
It's
on the
actually
street.
under the street. If you see the green on
Yeah.
your map, that's the sewer.
Okay,
Stay
that's
where
why I
it's at.
understood.
The problem is that right now, and it's easier when you look at a front-on picture of your house. That's where I really noticed it, was the front view on Plateau. Their sidewalks are back a curb. There's no gap between the street and the sidewalk.
Oh.
So they're putting the sidewalks where they're supposed to be, so
Yeah,
that
the
you get
backing sidewalk about 4 feet, and we can live with that. It's just the idea of, can we put a fence next to the sidewalk? That's all we're concerned about. So that's what we would like to do, is just put the fence back where the sidewalk is.
And they have been
And
denied.
that would be
those
really good for
requests.
us, and that's what our concern is.
And I understand that, and I just talking to Greg, they have denied all of those requests in the past so that they can keep those fences out of the city right away. But if there is some type of a special request that can be made or a variance, I don't know what it is, but I think that it could possibly be an issue. I think we'll have fences all up in the city right away if we're not careful and where they are now.
We have quite a few.
But they're
But
everywhere.
if you look anywhere in the
Yes.
neighborhood, you'll see
Yep.
fences on
Oh, absolutely.
city property all over.
And yours is unusual in that it's
Private
like
lines
those
cross all over
right-of-ways
too.
were there when that house was built way back when, and
The
you
house was
think,
built before the 50s.
right, how did that happen, that they built it so close to that edge. I just don't.
Well, they don't, as you say, they don't require the survey. You know, there are a lot of neighborhoods where, and I'm most familiar, forgive me, with my street, where literally every house is a third off. And we're in the original plat of 1853, the original town on my street, as it happens, and we're all off. And those houses, some of them have been there since, actually, within 4 years of the original founding of Council Bluffs. So, how that ever happened, you know, they had really good equipment. We drew out national boundaries, you know, back then with string and surveying the old-fashioned equipment. And I'm probably calling it wrong, so people laugh at me. But I don't know how they got that wrong, but they did, and so now we have to deal with it.
President Dodge, or General Dodge, that's why he joined the Army. Wasn't a very good surveyor.
Well, the challenge is there's.
Thank you, Bill.
The challenge is there's so many different eras of growth, residential. I mean, we see that in the commercial. You look at some of the older commercial areas, and they don't fit in with today's standards. So, and that's the challenge, is you're dealing with a hodgepodge across the entire city, and as we. You know, the hope and the goal is as things progress and we move forward, everything is in a more consistent design pattern, and that it's a huge challenge.
All right, we'll be down to take a look. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Badgers. We're adjourned.
Have you made a lot of people happy?
At Council Plus Savings Bank, you still get personalized customer service.
We have identity safe checking with LifeLock, identity theft protection.
You get personal mortgage lending to fit your needs now and in the future.
You get business banking with the latest technology because saving you time saves you money.
At Council Bluffs Savings Bank, you get people who answer when you call and local employees who are actively involved in our community. Council Bluffs Savings Bank, hometown banking the way it used to be.